Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to Coming to the Center, which is a live interview each semester with thought leaders, scholars, and experts in pagan spirituality. Cherry Hill Seminary is the leading provider of education and practical training in leadership, ministry, and personal growth in pagan and nature-based spiritualities. Graduates of our online graduate programs, professional and other certificates, and short courses are serving their communities across North America and beyond. So I'm your host, Holly E. Moore. I have served as Executive Director of Cherry Hill for the past 17 years. If you want to pose a question to Manny, please type it into the chat box on your screen, and we will take a look at those and bring them up as we have time. So today, our special guest is Manny Tejeda y Moreno. Manny was born in Cuba and raised in the American South. He currently resides in Miami, Florida, and Nemi, Italy. He is a witch now following eclectic tradition and was raised as a child of Oya. His PhD is in organizational behavior and statistics, and his academic research has been in leadership, research methods, spirituality, and witchcraft. His most recent academic publications explore the role of ecospirituality in the workplace and markets, and his presentations have been on the psychospiritual benefits of pilgrimages and green spaces. Most of us know him as the editor-in-chief of The Wild Hunt and as current National First Officer of the Covenant of the Goddess. And just a reminder to everybody to please mute yourself. Hang on, Manny. Okay. So first of all, congratulations to COG, Covenant of the Goddess. 50 years. Whoa. There's not many pagan groups that can say that. That's awesome. So what's it like being first officer? What's going on with COG's future? What's your vision?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Right, I appreciate the comment about thought leaders, but there are thought leaders in the room. I saw the scroll of all these amazing individuals already flowing into this meeting. So I'll be a little nervous, but COG is doing great. We just had our Grand Council last weekend, and we have some new directions. We had a little conversation about the phenomenon of Kaizen, of the idea of everything moving forward in a common purpose. During our 50-year, our 50th anniversary, which has been happening and continues through our next Samhain. We've been very busy. I was at Convocation. I was at multiple events, Mystic South, at with Earth Spirit, at Rites of Spring, multiple smaller festivals like Summer Magic in Florida, and I was invited to the Vatican when the Pope was for the new Pope. So it's been a very busy year. It's been a very exciting year for COG, and then COG members of our local councils have been celebrating as well, and they've had events throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
So
we've got a lot of COG members, I know, in the audience
today. And in addition to that, like I said, we just had our Grand Council, so we just set our agenda for this coming year, which we'll announce soon. Well, I'll be announcing right here, right? It's the year we're taking a year of reflection to be able to align the kinds of things that COG needs to do to be able to be around for the next 50 years. I saw a question that said the Vatican, but I don't know what it said. It might have been like, is it really scary to go to the Vatican? Or it could have been, tell us more about the Vatican.
Well, I was hoping you would tell us more about the Vatican, so why don't you do that now?
So we do live in Nemi, Italy, part-time. It's in the Alban Hills, just outside of Rome. And the Pope had been the new Pope was elected. We did send formal condolences on the passing of the previous Pope, and then this Pope was elected just under a month later, and he had his third papal audience on June 4th, and that uh, things aligned that we were going to be in Italy at the same time. So I sent them a message saying that it would be, I made clear who I was, and, that I was covenant of the goddess, and that we would be in town, and we would be grateful for some time from the Pope, so that we can discuss particularly the impact of Christian nationalism on minority faiths, and the role that the church can have in being able to mitigate the potential spiritual violence against minority faiths.
Mhm.
And then they wrote back saying, well, they didn't say it this way. They said it very elegantly, right? So we'll see you on June 4th. And and
Wow.
yeah, and then we went to, or Stefano is my husband, we went to the Vatican, and you have to stand in line to be able to get the ticket. So we did that. It's actually a quick process, but when I got to the papal household, the office of the papal household, they said, no, 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 wait, you have a different process. And I was like, oh, this is a little creepy. Once that they tell a witch you have a different process in the Vatican, that automatically like makes it a little creepy, right? And they said, no, stand to the side. And then they took me into another room that was further into the back. And I gave them my name, and then they said, no, wait, you have to give us a second. We need to get you something. And what they did is that they brought out an invitation that I thought was just like a regular invitation. I thought that they couldn't find who I was. And the invitation says very clearly, like special seating uh, in the special section, blah, blah, blah. And so then I just left with that. Uh, and the next day we got there early. Uh, and we made it to the Vatican. There's, for these kinds of papal audiences, there's also the public side, which is that they fill the it's very public. They fill the square with chairs and that kind of stuff. And so there can be up to 20-30,000 people that will go there at the same time.
Mhm.
So we stand in line. I take out my ticket, and then the Swiss guard comes up and says, no, 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 you can't be in this line. I'm like, okay. And then they bring us to another Swiss guard, and he says, no, you need to go to the front of the head of the line. And so they bring us to the head of the line, and then they call someone else, and then a cardinal sends another Swiss guard and says they need to go to the front of the head of the special line. So they bring us, so here we are in the back, now we're brought to the front, then we're brought to the very front, and then a Swiss guard comes up and says, no, follow me. And I was, well, where are we going? He says, no, 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 you're going to be escorted up on stage. And so
Wow.
so we were escorted there, and we were seated in the special section. I was seated right behind the cardinals of the church. So it was
Wow.
actually really cool, and they were very gracious. It was a tremendous interfaith opportunity. We briefly met the Pope. It wasn't a tremendously long meeting. It's not like we didn't comb each other's hair. Well, he's bald, but it was just a quick handshake. But we did interact with the other cardinals. They were very gracious. There were no concerns. Nothing came up that was even remotely odd. And what Wes just said, it was really, really super cool. It was also a whirlwind event, and hot, but it was a whirlwind event. So, and they were
You
very
and
gracious.
you and Stefan were both raised, or at least came along in a Catholic culture, didn't you?
Steph was raised in Catholicism, and took vows, but left the ordination.
Oh.
And I was raised somewhat differently. like many Cubans, we were raised a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and
Yeah.
so we were raised a little bit Catholic, a little bit African traditional religions, and a little bit Jewish. And
Hmm.
so, although now, when people talk to me, it sounds like a little bit Catholic, a lot African traditional religions, Ocha, and a lot more Jewish than people are surprised. People are surprised that by.
Where did the Jewish come from?
My family's Jewish, so
Oh, okay.
members of the family. In fact, now there's a cousin of mine who's made the news. He's a rabbi in Camagüey, and we haven't heard from him for a while, I should say. But he was leading a charge about some issues that were going on in Cuba related to discrimination, anti-Semitism, and discrimination against Jews.
Mhm.
And we're really not entirely sure where he is, but he made
Okay.
international news on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
This strikes me as something that will be significant for a long time, that simply that you were there, that you were welcome, that Covenant of the Goddess was welcomed. And whatever happened, whatever your experience, is a big signal to the world of the validity of our chosen paths.
I think yes, I think that that's right. I think that that the very fact that they didn't really bat an eye on it, and that they brought us to a really very honorable place, to sitting behind cardinals. Um, and in fact, that's kind of there was another part of that. They were asking what I should be called, and I'm like, well, Manny's good since that's my name. And so they said, no, what title do you have? I'm like, well, first officer. And then they were like, no, what title? And at that point, friends of mine in the covenant always have heard me say, well, I actually prefer your grace. But they came back and they said, your eminence. And I'm like, what? Oh, oh,
Wow.
they did present me as eminenza. So
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject, somebody also asked, were there representatives from other faiths there?
there were, and I'm not sure that it was such a whirlwind. There were predominantly Christian faiths there. There were a couple of interfaith denominations. I did meet an imam, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember the name. Uh, but there were other faiths there, uh, or I should say, there were other faiths there and denominations of Christianity there.
Maybe you said this already, but I'm going back to the beginning. How did they know who you were to even invite you?
I wrote them.
Oh, okay, that's right. You said
I
that.
wrote them from my
Yeah,
Covenant email, and let them know why I was there, and who was there.
yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, my experience with interfaith over the last going on 20 years has been that a lot of times the senior clergy have seen it all, and
Mhm.
unless they're just uber conservative, they're very open to us. It's
And
surprising.
I'm sorry, and Maka did just make a point that that Don Frew, who's
Uh,
one of our interfaith champions for the entire,
mhm.
he often refers to us as elders.
Yeah, yeah,
But when you're being asked by multiple cardinals, what are you referred to? You do forget these little things. And, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to the wild hunt. Tell me about that.
Well, the wild hunt is moving along. We have the usual challenges uh, of being a news service, and raising funds, those kinds of things. Uh, but and we've had some challenges in terms of reporting. We have multiple individuals that are taking a break right now, but we're doing okay. And what we have a new little project that I'm trying to get off the ground, which is we're trying to find out being able to reach um, campus organizations that are pagan centric, like a pagan student union. So we're trying to get that around
Mhm.
up and and running, being able to organize some resources. We're also trying to organize resources because there seems to be a kind of a lack of a central site in the community where you can find places to be able to not just get training like Cherry Hill, but also to be able to I think Maka just asked the question, but be able to locate events that are going on. Well, we got a message from our email provider that our circulation seems to be about 400,000. So
But yeah, go on with what you were saying.
we have about 65,000 impressions via Facebook. We're now on Blue Sky, that pulls in about another 1,000 impressions a day, and on Reddit we're at about 3,000 followers. That pulls in about 2,000 impressions a day. So on a daily basis, we reach somewhere around 50 to 60,000 pagans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I know I rely on Wild Hunt and have for years.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what do you see happening in the future with Wild Hunt?
Well, we'd like to be able to set aside, have a day, we all have day jobs. And so keeping those things running while we have day jobs, once that we have breathers from our day jobs, we're going to try to expand our journalistic resources, individuals who can write regularly for us. We do pay, but many people offer their services for free. And so we're trying to expand that. We have a couple of new correspondents, one in Western Europe and I guess both in Western Europe, one in England and one in Northern Italy. And they're interested. We have another potential one in kind of the LA area. And so once that things die down from our day jobs, we'll be having more conversations to see what availability they have and what they'll be able to do. Because we definitely want to know, can they write one article a month, for example? And if anyone here is interested, you can reach me at manny@wildhunt.org.
Okay. We should put that in the chat box, manny@wildhunt.org, in case you have an itch to write.
Yeah.
Thanks. You're also a professor. I wanted to hear you address what's been going on, what it's like to teach at a university just the last 8 months, if you'd care to address that.
Oh, wow. Let's see. I would say the last 8 months has been, I would say the first month or so, things were kind of okay. And then a number of our faculty members, and we have quite a few faculty members who happen to come from, they were born behind the Iron Curtain when that happened. And of course, we have a few individuals who were born in Cuba. And this is kind of university-wide. And I want to say by March, faculty members were starting to say, things look a little creepy. And it was that I remember one faculty member remarking, it doesn't look authoritarian, but it's starting to smell authoritarian. And most faculty members were, from this, including me, were getting cues of their childhood that things are moving in a different kind of direction, in the very subtle chess-like advance, where there's a piece moved here, a piece moved there, and then we see more authoritarianism or more state control, or another piece is moved and all of a sudden there's less state control, which is itself more damaging. Like, very much what's happening right now with the vaccines, where there's less state control, or the insistence is that there's less state control in passing along, non-science by the secretary and by the Secretary of Health, and then that itself is a form of authoritarianism. It's not controlling, it's releasing, it's ignoring science and releasing the health of the citizenship to random forces. You know? And
Has yours,
I don't recall history very well on this, so someone can, please fact check me. There was movement like this in previous authoritarian regimes. That I believe, like 1938 Italy, it certainly happened in Cuba, where there was a movement away from the protective, the good side, the protectively good side of the state for the welfare of the citizens. So
yeah, has your school uh, had funding cut or had any ultimatums?
I'm in a relatively small Catholic school, and
Uh,
so we're not very big, but we do have funding, and there were worries about funding, particularly with DEI, yeah, the initiatives against DEI. I have previous experience in a former position as an assistant professor. I was a clinical trial statistician, so I was very involved with some NIH work,
mhm.
and my colleagues there. They have scrambled about how to be able to get enough funding for the future of their work. I know that they've sued and there were some funds released, but I couldn't really speak to the status of that. In other words, they were the federal government, the U.S. federal government was blocking access to contracts that kept people employed, and that itself was creating issues. So sorry if I sound, this is a very complex topic, right? There's a part where,
Okay.
like, how it impacts directly the student, right? And we had some issues there. I think all universities had some issues there, and those seem to have been resolved. These are things like the Pell Grant access. And then subsequently, there were issues about closing federal contracts that were specifically through places like the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation. And those were, I believe, mostly restored, but I don't know for sure. And even in the restoration, people panic. And so research associates I hear have left because they found a job that was more secure, and they don't want to rely on that. So there's the direct impact of removing, potentially removing the funding and then restoring the funding, and then the secondary impact that it destabilizes the process of research. So individuals who can do research will then move away because they also need to put food on the table, and they can't be in that state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, chicken questions.
Mhm.
Uh,
And,
and,
and I should say that there have been that there are other aspects, right? So we had advice on ICE and what happens if there are raids on campus. So we've had to go through more training and more worry on behalf of the students, and we've also seen kind of across the board, my colleagues at other universities have experienced this as well. Uh, Kind of a chilling effect on international students where they might seek a visa to be able to come to the United States, and their visas are denied. And we've seen an overall, uh, I'm double checking myself because I'm not sure that we have seen the full drop. I hear of drops in international student applications, right? So
yeah,
that has been across the board. And I have seen and heard of direct denials from various parts of the world, particularly the Middle East, not Israel, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Central Asia.
Mhm, mhm.
So more denials than usual. And
Yeah, I work with some international students on campus here, and we've been worried for months.
yeah, and delays in being able to access consular services. That has been another piece of it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Um,
But in the classroom, it's now I had my first classes, so in the classroom, uh, it's pretty much been the same. The students are talking about they're talking about the usual things like, is there a syllabus? What's in the syllabus? And then the syllabus is in front of them. How many words will this be? That kind of stuff. That's the rubber hitting the road part of course delivery has been the same the past week.
mhm, mhm. Okay. I forgot to ask you when we were talking about Wild Hunt. You said you get hate mail.
Oh yeah,
Tell us about that. Why and who does it come from?
yeah,
About what?
yeah. Um, Feel free to tell me to shut up because I can go on about this for hours, right? So, most recently, when we have a subscribe, if you visit the website, there's a part where you can subscribe to the uh, the I'm sorry, like the MailChimp release, so that you can get the Wild Hunt delivered directly into your inbox.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right. So rather than just visiting the website, you can subscribe to the Wild Hunt, and then we send it to you by email. So, uh, a couple of months ago, someone decided to spend their days uh, putting in addresses into the Wild Hunt, and that raised our costs to be able to do this on these services. But they were also only putting in addresses that were part of the U.S. government. So all of a sudden, we know that about 1,500 emails went out through the State Department and into the Office of Personnel Management. I have no idea why this was being done, but it was clearly an attack, and it was to raise the costs of that. So we had to stop that. Uh,
Wow.
and I just turned it back on last night, because I figured like 2 months has been enough time, and this person found other things to do. Hopefully it involves crocheting rather than whatever else. And so we assume that that stopped. I'll know more probably at the end of the weekend whether that's the case. And then I'll occasionally post on Facebook some of the email that I had. I had one. I get maybe 6 dozen emails a week from individuals wanting to let me know that there's a way to find Jesus
Mhm.
in various ways. And sometimes it's just Bible verses. Sometimes it's much more serious, the usual hell conversation. uh, and then I'll get half a dozen emails that are aggressive specifically towards me, saying I am personally responsible for pulling people away from Jesus, and therefore Jesus hates me. But he loves everybody else, but he hates me specifically. And then my favorite one is that someone wrote in like a lengthy diatribe that I am the son of the prince of possessors, and that I am
Wow.
clearly responsible for an army of demons that lead people astray. So all of you online right now, look out, because I'm going to assign
An,
a demon specifically for you.
an army of demons.
Yeah,
Wow. I would love to have
army
that kind
of
of
demons,
power.
no less. Right, right.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, you know what I get? Cherry Hill, the P.O. box, I get Christian books. They
Right.
just send me books. And I think that a lot of people assume that we're Christian because it says seminary and they don't bother to look any further. So I get a lot of that kind of thing. Will you pray for my ministry? Can you help support my ministry? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I get those too. They're a little bit rare. Like someone needs assistance with something, there's a demon in their house, or they need assistance with a spell or a hex or whatever it might be,
Mhm.
and they're clearly, laying out all of the pieces that need to get done. And by the way, we do get some serious ones. We get individuals that will tell us about violence against pagans and things that they're experiencing. Oftentimes, we can't really intervene. We have a case right now that seems to involve an individual who uh, who has been separated from their children, and the court has said it has to do with their practice of their pagan practice. Uh, this is, terrible. They get a response from me saying, keep us posted. I hope things are well. If they want to talk, I'm happy to talk. They haven't responded. At the same time, this is certainly something that we would cover, but we haven't been able to locate the information in a way that they've in the same way that they've described. So, we'll try to look for the case files, or verdicts that are done. These are very difficult because they're family cases, right? So sometimes
Mhm.
they're
Yeah.
completely blocked out, but we can't even validate like the docket date. And so I have no doubt that some of that's happening, but we can't cover it unless we can get some specific information.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got some interesting new features on the site. Do you want to tell us about the rune of the day?
Oh, well, yes, that's very exciting. That's brand new as of last night. Yeah,
Because you did the
right.
programming.
I did the programming, and for some reason it came out correct. So we do have on wildhunt.org, we have a little rune of the day, and you just log on and it shows you a rune of the day, and you can click on a little tab, and it has a little rune of the day for you. So I wrote that program last night, and it worked from the get-go. So I was very excited and grateful that that had happened. There probably is an error in it, and it'll blow up the site maybe by tonight once the rune changes. So, but we'll hope for the best right now. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
the moon one, well, I also wrote the first, the top moon one. I also wrote that was relatively easy, and it worked from the get-go. It hasn't had any problems. So I'm personally very excited about this. Right.
I'm impressed. I can do a lot of stuff on the non-coding side, but I haven't ever created a program. Came along a little late for that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Speaking of hate mail, uh, you've been writing a lot this year about some issues that I have a really strong interest in, and it's the rise of Christian nationalism. And I do want to say for the record here what often said to some of our students. We are not anti-Christian. In fact, there are pagans who feel an affinity for or still identify in some way as some sort of Christian. But a lot of us have a chip on our shoulders from our past really bad experiences. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about a form of nationalism that inserts itself into the Christian theological framework. And you've done some excellent writing about that on a number of occasions, and I was hoping that you would talk to us today because that seems like an important thing for all of us to be watching.
It's probably the most critical issue right now, because it's embedded in the policies of authoritarianism and control of the population, which the current administration is very centered on. So, as part of the covenant, I was able to visit. Selena Fox actually invited me. She said you should come to. Selena Fox, and then there I met Eric Eldridge. Both were
Mhm.
there as representatives from their organizations to Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. So I went there as first officer. We had that meeting in April of this year, and surprisingly, then they accepted me to participate in what they call Hill Day and visit representatives to let them know about the experiences minority face and concerns that individuals have. We were able to meet Jamie Raskin and really have a good conversation about that. So this is part of the very exciting year and very busy year from my role as National First Officer. But in the material that I've written about on the Wild Hunt, I think that this is a fairly serious moment where Christian nationalism is not only on the rise, but it also in many ways has nothing to do with Christianity. It really has to do with control. And I've had conversations with Christian friends that some of whom, are somewhat conservative. We don't really sit around talking that often, but we do have conversations. And what I said recently was that there's a threat to our community, right? To the pagan polytheist community, because it's moving pieces to be able to establish a state religion, right?
Yeah.
And then to be able to create secondary religions, or to create a status where there's a hierarchy of religion, so that Judaism and Islam might be part of the book relationships, and so they're kind of okay but misguided, and then like real kind of more serious. And I think that a lot of individuals who buy into, a lot of Christians who buy into the direction of Christian nationalism being okay, I think that they misunderstand the future of that. Christian nationalism is a spiral downward, because there's the part where it's Christian based authoritarianism, but there's also dialogue about what the expectation of belief is among Christians. And I feel that many Christians don't recognize the diversity that they have within their own denominations. And what I mean by that is that they might have a common view of Jesus, but there are different views about Trinitarian Christianity. There are different denominations about that. So it really is a spiral, like I said, a spiral downward, where at one point it will be common, and then at one point it will be a common consensus about a particular view of Christianity, and it will then immediately move to the right. So then will it be, say, Trinitarianism? Okay, well that begins to exclude the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it starts beginning to exclude Seventh-day Adventists. And then will it be the divinity of Mary? Will that be the next thing that they will start arguing about? So it's a spiral downward and a move to the right. It's a slide over to the right. And I don't think that many Christians are aware that their denominations will be next. It will start with non-monotheistic groups, and then start whittling into the monotheistic groups on what the view of Christian nationalism, the view of Christian national, because there are many liberal Christian denominations. And when I was at the Americans United event, there were Christians there saying, raising concerns and saying there are dog whistles, and that their congregations are aware that they are next. And so there's concern from the liberal Christians on this as well. And the conservative Christians, I don't think that they're aware that the movement will in fact encompass them, and they too will be part of those excluded.
I know that the Christians who are involved in my interfaith state organization are very aware of that. The ones who are not tend to not be interested in interfaith. But we have to be careful, because interfaith, by definition, encompasses a whole spectrum. We have Modi supporters, all kinds of folks in the group.
And I think one of the cautions about that is that we ourselves need to be aware of the
Yes.
threats, but I also think that we ourselves uh, need to be careful about knee-jerk reactions. Can I share a knee-jerk reaction that I had this week? So
Good.
my license tag in the state of Florida basically says witchcraft. So I drive a Jeep that says witchcraft, right? And I got a renewal this week and it said you can't have this license tag anymore. So I immediately reacted like, oh, well, this is just, I'm gonna lawyer up. We're in it. We're I'm going after these people. And so I went to the the county office. And I was like ready for like a fight. Like I'm like I'm like ready. And they're like, oh no, I said, what is the point of this? And he says, no, your license tag is 10 years old. You just have to renew the plate. And then he just he says, okay, it's renewed. You just have so we have to
That's good.
yeah, we have to be aware of the threat, and then I think like in this case, I have to remind myself that the game that there's a long game, and it's not always the thing that you think.
It's well put. It's a long game and it's not always the thing that you think.
Yeah.
You were at the panel uh, at Mystic South, weren't you?
Well,
Yeah.
I organize the panel. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And you were there too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, I think I was there.
See, I've been busy as National First Officer.
Yes, yes. Well, remember when you called on me to come on up and say something, and I brought up the Seven Mountains theory,
Mhm.
or whatever it is they call it. Is that something you're familiar with? Do you want to comment on that? Because I really think that people out here need to know about that.
Well, I don't recall exactly what you said, so if you could refresh my uh
Sure.
this is the Apostolic Reformation. Is that what
Um,
you're referring to? Uh
well, yeah, that's part of it.
that's-
Actually, I'll tell my story.
okay.
Some years ago, a good friend of mine who is Syrian American, he's a U.S. citizen, lived here a long time, but he grew up under Bashir Assad
Hmm.
and was very happy when that was overthrown. But he gave a talk for us one time on how a person like Assad comes to power. And he gave the step by step, and he had a little diagram of, I think it was like education, the media,
Yep, yep,
religion, culture, and something else. And it was seven things. Well, about 3 or 4 months later, I encountered this Seven Mountains
yep,
doctrine. And when I showed it to him, he freaked out. He said, "This is what I told about, isn't it?" And I said, "It's exactly.
yeah,
Start with one thing, move
yeah,
to another." And we've seen this happen already in the world of public education.
yeah. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Do it.
this is exactly out of the Youth for Christ, the Campus Crusade for Christ. What was his name? Bill Bright. uh,
Yeah, yeah,
that he organized Youth for Christ, Campus Crusade for Christ with I think he called them spheres, and there are seven mountains, like the seven spheres. This is also the origin of some of the prosperity gospel material, and that if you involve yourself correctly, you need to be in these multiple places all at the same time, and you'll see the benefits of God's work in each of them. And what God's work is that you are, pulling the levers in each of these areas because they are methods of controlling society. And I don't remember all of the areas. It's something like the media, business, the media, the business, the family, something else. You said
yeah.
education. Um,
And
oh,
I'm looking for a link to share.
and culture. Sorry. Uh, like in the arts. So you see this from from resources now. For those of you who may not be aware, there's a site out there. I think it's called Moviegoers. That sounds like some secular place that gives you reviews. It is not secular at all. It is entirely a Christian site, and it's called Moviego. I think it's Moviegoers. If someone can just do a quick check on that, and you think that that's not that's just a secular uh sort of like Siskel and Ebert review site. And then when you start reading the reviews, it's very clear that it's a site specifically about how uh, a particular movie is showing elements that are satanic, and that includes things like witchcraft, in their view. So they send cautions. I get them every now and then, and I've written about them a number of times at the Wild Hunt, where something will come up and they'll say, you shouldn't really take your family to see this because you'll expose your children to demonic forces. The current thing that they're on about is the K-pop. What's the name of that little demon? Blue, something, I can't pronounce it. But the K-pop demon songs that
I don't
they've now
follow.
hit the top charts. They're the first group to hit four at the same time because they released a whole album.
Oh,
But some of these sites are on about that. This is part of Satan's effort, and Satan's army are witches. So
well, here it is. Okay, I just found the Wikipedia page for those who are in the audience and want to find out. The article I pasted before that, I haven't read. But here, the Wikipedia is good. I've read it. Well,
is
and
it who I'm talking about, or did I just like make that up? The Bill Bright, and that they were involved in Campus Crusade.
here it is,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
yeah. Okay.
Lauren Cunningham, Bill Bright, and Frankie Schaefer.
Yeah.
Frankie Schaefer Jr., I should say, because his
Because
dad was.
when yeah, I have no sense of how big Youth for Christ is, or Campus Crusade for Christ is right now,
No.
but they were big for a long time. I guess I don't see them because they're too evangelical, and so in the universities that I'm most familiar with, they haven't really ever had a huge presence.
And here's the seven dominions. This
Yeah.
is dominionism: family, religion, education, media, entertainment, business, and government.
Mhm.
And Ron says Campus Crusade for Christ has gotten eaten up by Turning
Turning Point.
Point
Yeah.
USA.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we went to an interesting event held by one of our good South Carolina newspapers. They showed a new documentary George Clooney has put out. It's called Good Night and Good Luck, and it's about Edward Murrah and the fight against McCarthy. And I asked the panel of journalists afterwards what they knew about pink slime journalism in our area. And there was only one of them that had ever heard that term. But what you just described, where somebody positions themselves so that they look like they're, pretty middle of the road, but then you get into it and it's actually placed content. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And directed content that that is that is instructional and with very clear points of action, right?
mhm.
And so Disney has been hit by this a number of times. I don't know if you saw those. Most recently, there was a Splash Mountain controversy because there's a moment where they're doing a tour through New Orleans, the updated Splash Mountain. There's a tour through New Orleans, and there's a mention of a voodoo queen or someone that apparently practiced. They lost their minds over that. Um, there was another the movie, I don't remember if it was, I think it is Disney, Encanto, about that really has a lot of his Latin American spirituality in it. That the grandmother, sorry, this is a spoiler, the dead grandmother, her involvement in the movie is that's not the grandmother, that's a demon, and to expose your children to
Yeah,
thinking that voices of the ancestors, voices of ancestors are actually, agents of Satan.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. So how do you think pagans need to be responding to this concern?
I don't. We come up with this every now and then in the Wild Hunt, and I don't know if I have a good solution, because part of it is there's there. I have two sides on this, right? So the first part is the there's a point of this that's really insidious because it's unchallengeable, right? So you say, okay,
Mhm.
this is not these are agents of Satan. Fine. If you're a Christian, I don't think that most Christians in the conservative area are reflective about Christianity being, Hellenized Judaism. I don't think that they sit around thinking about this, right? And
Mhm.
because they don't sit around thinking about this, and because they believe that the Bible is, inherently uncontradicted, internally consistent, and the direct word of God, probably because they haven't read it, right? So John and so Paul and Jesus do not agree. So that's a spoiler alert if you want to tell your friends about that, but they're not going to go read that, right? Uh, Matthew doesn't think that that mega churches should be doing what they're doing, right? So, but they're not going to read that, and they're going to get an apologetic point of view altering what that message is, because most conservative Christians don't actually read the Bible. They read the Bible under the direction of a pastor that's framing the material for them, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
there there's no critical thinking involved in that it's very one-sided, and saying something like Christianity is I'll get hate mail if this goes out. I guaranteed, Christianity is Hellenized Judaism, guaranteed. I'm going to get hundreds of bits of hate mail. I'm very excited now already. So that's that
Sorry.
that's yeah that's part of the challenge, is that we we cannot approach a conversation at that particular level. However, what I can say is that based on experiences that I've had uh, here in Miami and other places, the most disarming thing that you can do is show up, not be not be particular. Sometimes we dress dramatically for them, but if you show up in a shirt and tie as uh, a priest, minister, clergy of an organization, and undermine their expectations, and then on top of that, which you know, uh, I forget where it was mentioned this week, that I have this strategy that anytime I meet uh, a new a new pastor, a new clergy from an interview, I immediately just give them my phone number. Or if I've had issues about community issues, like, oh, there are witches, I'll just give them my phone number, and then all of a sudden that becomes incredibly disarming. That I've just
Yeah.
given you my phone number. Call me anytime if you have
Yeah.
questions, and then they just don't know what to do with that.
Right.
So the pastor down the street, that he wants to run a mega church, and he's very conservative. Um, he's had some issues with my car. I had another car besides Witchcraft. I had a second car, and it said, the license tag said cultist, and it was driving them nuts. That one was cultist, and the other one said Witchcraft. Um, and we had this experience. A few people on this call know we had an experience where members of the community. I've allowed the plants to essentially grow in such a way that I've rewilded the backyard and part of the front yard. And
Mhm.
in doing so, I also painted the house in dark green. And so at night, you can't tell where the house is. So some members of the church started that my house has a spell on it that causes it to vanish at night. It becomes and I'm like, this is the best I've heard, right? But then they released it on Facebook, and so we started to get people to show up in front of the house. I had some prayer warriors in front of the house, and then I also had people showing up waiting for the house to vanish at night. So, the police did have to get involved. They suggested security cameras, and then we had a period of time where the police were basically stationed outside. But then when I finally met the pastor, the first thing I did was gave him my phone number, and then he could, that was it. Like, he didn't know what to say at that point. I'm just call me, and if you want to come in for coffee, tea, whatever, and then that was the end of his diatribe. Like, that ended it completely, because he thought that he was in for a fight and he didn't get one.
When people have a chance to get to know you as a human instead of this
Yeah,
object representing what they fear, yeah, it makes all the difference, doesn't it?
yeah.
I am looking in the chat box to see if there are any burning questions that we can close out with. And yeah, Michael, righteous gemstones is over the top. I think I told you about it.
Burning's an excellent analogy for for the conversation.
Yeah, it is. Uh, does anybody have another topic they'd like to hear Manny address? Okay. Well,
Potential typing going on. I see potential typing.
I was looking for the little dots. I'm
I
not
don't see
seeing it.
everyone, but I think I saw some potential type. Okay. What do I want to? Well, as I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
I'm interested in what's going on with younger folks. And I'm very interested in what's going on in campuses right now. And I mentioned that I'd like to be able to locate pagan uh, uh, pagan organizations on campuses. I'm also, but one of the things that I think that the Wild Hunt can assist with, when we lost Witchvox, we lost a central place for the community to have dialogue on, and we've tried to create an event section on the Wild Hunt. It's a lot of work, and so we've been trying to populate it. Right now, it's empty, but we really want to build that up. So one of the things that the community can really help us with is let us know when there are events that should be, broadcast. Because I think post-pandemic, we've kind of stopped talking to each other, and we don't really get together as often, I think, as we did.
Mhm.
And one of the conversations that we've had in COG, which, I say COG, but I'm trying to move away and call it the Covenant, which, one of my members said, that sounds creepier. And I'm like, good. And so, so for the Covenant is that we're very, we've kind of lost we've kind of like lost the events where we're shaking hands, hugging, or just, looking at each other rather than a screen and looking at each other. So I think that having a place where pagan pride events can be centralized so that everybody knows, is aware of when they're happening, and simply an invite to the community to be able to participate. I think that we need to do that more, and being able to interact with people, we need to do that more. And how to help, the Covenant is out there if you're interested in joining. We're a confederation of solitaries and covens of witches and Wiccans, and we have opportunities. We're extending invitations to join really right now. And for the Wild Hunt, if anyone's interested in writing, or even if you're not interested in writing, telling others to we're not a wealthy community, but if just $1 a month, if everyone who reads us were to offer $1 a month to the Wild Hunt, we would be fine for years. So it really boils down to that. The Wild Hunt really needs some community support for donations, and we're getting by, but we could do more if we had a better sized staff than we have. Everyone works hard in the Wild Hunt right now, but we're low on people. And the Covenant is really get to know us, and we're really trying to do the lift to align the Covenant with future activities as we go through this year of reflection that would have to do with things like the structure, the new opportunities of creating local council, and even down to what our plans for future philanthropy are and interfaith activities. Because I'm a big cheerleader on the interfaith side of the the covenant.
Y'all have been dedicated to that for a long time, and
Very,
you've often provided financial support to Cherry Hill,
yes,
which we're grateful for.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Well, Manny, I want to thank you again for making time to talk. I know it's a busy time with the beginning of school, and I'm sure everybody here, like me, deeply appreciates your commitment to serving the pagan community.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And don't go yet. And everybody who attended today, thank you too for being part of this tasty mix that is our Cherry Hill Seminary family. We're always grateful for your spoken and financial support because we need it too. And invite you to visit us on social media and on our website, cherryhillseminary.org. So thank you. And
Thank you so much. Yeah.
can you stay on for a minute, Manny, after
Absolutely.
everybody leaves? Yeah, applause, applause. Thank you, everybody.
I have a quick question. What is the cog?
Kage is Covenant of the Goddess.
Yeah, say again.
Covenant of the Goddess, and it's a federation of covens and solitaries practicing witchcraft, Wiccans and witchcraft practitioners, particularly spiritual witchcraft. You visit us on cog.org. You can learn about us, although I'm working on the website right now. So, but we're very focused on interfaith, nature spirituality, and we are in when I became first officer, a surprising number of places, things like the Council of Foreign Relations, the United Nations. We're there with United. We participated in the Parliament of World Religions. Now we're with Americans United. So we've been extremely active in 50 some odd years on interfaith activities and in furthering pagan rites. For example, if you recall, where tombstones were allowed to have the pentacle as well as the Mjolnir, that individual was a member of Everglades Moon Local Council of the Covenant of the Goddess, and then it was picked up that through the Covenant, Circle Sanctuary, and Lady Liberty League, and our partners in Aquarian Tabernacle Church. We all came together. Selena was tremendous in spearheading that from Circle side, but that emerged from the Covenant and then became something that our partners like Lady Liberty League really took off with that and demanded. So we've been there doing a tremendous amount of work, but we're not in front of the scenes as often as we should be.
Okay. Hey, thank you so very much, and I greatly enjoyed this.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
You have a good one.
Take care.